Welcome back to Paddy's Golf Tips, and we're going to talk about probably my favourite subject, and certainly a lot of golfers' favourite subject, speed.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Padraig Harrington.
Speed in the golf swing. Okay, so I think there's a lot of myths when it comes to speed. Misconceptions, let's say, not myths. So the very first one I see a lot of people go with, this is particularly evident that when I grew up, the ladies 12 tee box was in my practice ground. Okay, the practice ground at the golf club that I thought I owned was where the ladies 12 tee box was, and I used to have to watch every lady come through. They used to hate it, they used to delay me, but however, what you consistently see, and what you see now, I see it more coming into the game, is a lot of people think that a long swing is going to create more clubhead speed. And it's true. If your average force stays the same and you go for a longer time, basically you have a longer hand swing in the downswing, it means you have more speed. So if you can maintain the force on the clubhead grip throughout that downswing from a longer position, a higher hand position, let's say, you are going to have more speed. But the reality of the fact is, when people swing longer, because they're not supple enough, because they're not fit enough, they make compensations. So they might be in a strong position here, they lose all their power by lifting to get longer, and they actually end up, by the time they come back to the golf ball, they're losing speed. So for the majority of people, they're far better off with a short backswing and a longer follow through. And I think the golden rule, no matter how long your backswing is, your follow through needs to be longer in order to maintain speed going through the downswing. So I'm not saying a long swing is wrong, but for most people it won't work. So we're going to talk through quite a bit about this. So for me, your wrists and arms play the biggest, most important part in terms of speed, okay? 70% of the speed comes from the last lever, which is this. Your wrist is the last lever, okay? So that has to function right if you want to transfer the speed out to the golf ball, okay? So you got to be active with your wrists. You got to be swinging your arms fast if you want to go fast. Turning your hips forward and speed add margin. They really struggle. You don't add a lot when you're doing a lot of turning. Honestly, it adds a tiny bit, and at the very elite end it's important, and maybe for juniors it's important, but really turning is not going to be that important for you. Getting your hands and arms moving and making your body work in conjunction with your hands and arms, rather than what most people tend to do, or certainly at the very elite level, what is taught is getting your hands and arms to respond to your body. I think for most amateurs, most handicap golfers, they want to get their body to respond to their hands and arms. So let's get our hands and arms active, okay? So we want good wrist action. Fire those wrists. We want good arms. Fire them. The last thing I'm thinking about in those two swings are what my body is doing and what my hips do. It's natural for them to respond to what your arms are doing. Now, what you will tend to find, okay, we're going to make a good backswing, okay? So we're going to turn, this hip is going to get high, it's going to go in behind us a bit, knee over here, you're going to lift your left heel. It's shown if everything stays the same, if you're creating the same force by lifting your left heel higher, which means your hands get a little higher, you'll gain 2.5 inches of extra hand height, is I think 3 to 4 miles an hour of speed. So that's a simple gain if everything stays equal, but it doesn't always stay equal. So if you want to hit it further, lift that heel, get the hands up here. Now, what I don't want to see is, if you get to a point where you've got a nice relaxed coil, the position you want to get in the backswing is the position that you're just before your maximum stretch, because we want our maximum stretch as we start the downswing, okay? So you just don't want to get to a point, which most amateurs do. They get to a point that they're in a good position to stretch, and instead they go, oh, I need to turn more, I need to go more, and they lose everything. So if you lift in the backswing like that, you have no power. You've lost all your stretch, you've nowhere to go. So we want to get to a point, for most people it will be shorter than they think. Get to a point you're just before your full coil, your full stretch, so that you can stretch in the downswing. Okay, now clearly the long hitters, and you will watch them, they have bigger swings. They work at it, they're supple, they're able to stay. Like John Daly was able to swing the club down here and yet keep all this in position. You will see he's like this. Whereas if you're a weekend warrior and you're trying to swing down there, you're probably going to be doing all sorts of compensations. So he didn't lose that tension in his body by overswinging, and the long hitters can maintain these positions. They don't cheat that backswing by getting to a nice point and then all of a sudden this big lift which loses power. I would definitely recommend to everybody, they should get themselves a simple monitor. You can buy them for a couple of $100 online that measures clubhead speed without the ball, and they should work on it once a week where they do 20 or 30 swings, just swinging as fast as they can. And let yourself go, let yourself step, okay? If you want to maintain your speed, you need to work on your speed once a week. Otherwise, it's always on a downslope. If you want to maintain it as you get older, and you will, I can tell you, if you're playing golf when you're 60, 70, go and ask any 67-year-old and they'd all wish they were 20 yards longer. You've got to keep working at it to keep it the same. So every week, 20, 30 balls, and if you're a junior, 20, 30 balls working on speed, whatever that is to you. You can do Happy Gilmore's to work on it. For me, one of the best ways of working on speed is actually short swings. So if that is my normal swing, okay, if I practice from here, well, what feels like here will be longer. What feels like here, that feels powerless, so I really have to engage my body. So I will do some short swings to get everything firing. So I'll have much more force on the club over a shorter distance, which obviously isn't what I want on the golf course, because overall that would lose speed. But if I'm increasing my force, hopefully some of that will stay when I go longer. So a good key for me is nice short swings. So I really have to rip into that from that position because it feels powerless. I tell you what, I wish I hit the ball like that all the time. So I will do that to build up my speed. Oh, there's so much to talk about in speed. You're going to be faster if you move your feet before you take the club away, because you're going to be better prepped. If you're still, you're going to be slower. Okay? So the more you move, like if I was really wanting to hit a big long drive, I would be moving this much to get speed. Okay? That was my normal length swing there. Okay? But I move. So short swings get everything primed in my body. Moving my feet gets everything primed. I do practice sometimes with a long swing, but it's a bit out of control. Again, the hard thing with a long swing is I lose a little bit of the pressure on the grip. I don't quite get that action that I would get with a shorter swing. I have to go. With a longer swing, it's a bit loose. So that you'll see the left heel come up on this one. Feet are moving. Like so. Okay. I use that when I want to go up and over something for a big carry. It mightn't be my, well, it's up there fast, sometimes in the 190 ball speeds on a good day. But again, you'll see how my feet react. I turn behind myself, I've got that angle. I sit into the left side, I explode. If I'm hitting it really hard, this left leg might drag a little bit. You'll see that a lot. You'll see the players with the toe up like that. I'm stretching as much and getting the furthest distance from my toe to my heel as I can through impact. My right side is pushing forward. So I am pushing off that right foot, but I'm not pushing out this way. We don't want our hip going that way. I'm pushing in like so. So a drill for that is a little jump drill. I know I've shown this before. So again, this is for ground force. So I do this as a little drill. I will jump through impact. Just like so. So a nice beautiful shot. I'll do that again. Where you see a lot of people jumping through impact is they tend to jump up, which that means your right hip is level and comes out, which is actually the worst thing you can do in the golf swing. I jump, this is exploding, the left side is exploding up, the right side is staying down and pushing under and through. So you will see that leg will go forward as that one pulls back. They go in the opposite direction. Do that nice. Doesn't have to be done at full pace, even though you can. I'll do it slowly here. So move my feet. Just like so. Okay, so it's a jump and a twist. You know, ground force is very important, and it's so much important to me. I use special insoles. So I've got these Victory insoles in my FootJoy shoes. Just like so. They're carbon fibre. You'll have seen, if you follow sport, there's a lot of people in athletes breaking their personal best using these. There's an 8% improvement in ground force reactions in the clinical trials. So this helps me press and explode better. I've achieved my personal best a few times, and it also has the added bonus that I have better recovery after my rounds. So I'm not as tired either, which is a nice bonus. Okay, so that's the ground force. Left leg extending back up, head is coming back up and backwards. Right side is going down and through. You'll know you got it right if you finish balanced on the way through. And again, I do that best with a sort of 3/4 length swing. Feet moving. Slightly turned out, that helps my hips turn, okay? The fairway's a little to the right, so I'm actually looking like I'm a little closed, but I'm not. Here we go down here, okay? So, as much as my left side is coming up and backwards and extending, I can follow through there. You can see my right shoulder is the closest thing to the target. I'm up very high. There's a big stretch up, and my club is somewhat pointing to the target. The young lads will be over there. I'm happy enough with that. And you know, if you're a senior citizen, that will do just fine. As long as you're extended up. My body is a little bit centered and back, so I still have a little bit of weight in my toe here, like so. Flat, left foot is flat. I haven't gone forward. I'm nicely in position. So again, experiment. Try and get a monitor that you can see speed. Experiment with short swings. Experiment with long swings. Which one works for you? The likelihood is a shorter swing than you think is going to be your fastest swing. So short, your follow through's always got to be longer than your backswing. Definitely explode up with the legs. Left leg straight up and back, and right side under and push through. That's why, you know, you never want to push up this way with that right thigh. It has to be in. And you can see I've hit a few drives here, and if you do hit drives in the same spot, that's how much pressure I'm putting on the ground. You can see I'm starting to put a hole in the ground. That's normal, and that's why you'll hit the ball further off a firm surface. That's why I have those Victory insoles, because the firmer the surface, the further you'll hit the ball. Off a soft surface, you won't hit it as far. You won't have as much speed. And you can see I'm putting that much pressure that I'm starting to create a hole in the ground. Outside of that, make sure you're using your wrists very actively. Make sure you're using your arms. Turning more only helps you get in a better position in the backswing. Turning faster on the way through really doesn't add speed. Nor does, and this is controversial, separating your hips does not add speed. Oh, we all know the X factor adds speed. So what's X factor? So while the big buzzword is, you know, especially at the moment, is ground force reaction, the one that was there a while ago was your X factor stretch in the downswing. And I'm going to tell you something now. You should not separate your hip from your torso. Now that's very controversial, and I do need to explain it. So X factor stretch is when you get to the top, okay, how far your hip can stretch away from your torso, okay? So if your hip is 45 degrees and your torso is 90, and you say you can get your hip to, say you get your hip to 20 degrees and your torso to 80 degrees, that's a 60%. So it was 45, so you've gained 15% of separation. We're looking for maybe 20, 25, okay, which is great. But we want as much separation, but you don't want to actually separate the two. They have to stay connected. So you want the flexibility that this hip turns but stays connected. But it is not beneficial, and this has been shown very much in baseball, and other sports, throwing sports, it's not beneficial if the left hip just completely separates from the upper body. There's no stretch there. No stretch. So you could say my hips are 45 degrees open. So we go to the top, 45 degrees, 90 degrees. My hips have gone to 45 degrees open. My shoulders are at 75. So we're now 120 degrees. So we increased it by 75 degrees. That was useless because yes, we want to get a differential between our hips and our torso, but they have to stretch to that differential. They can't just separate apart. There is no stretch there on my left side, whereas that's stretching. It's stayed connected. It's pulling everything down this side. It's pulling across this chain up this way. That's the separation we're talking about. We're not talking about this just loosely going around here without pulling on the right side. So you want to turn your hip but pull. It's got to be a stretch away. You can't just have a disconnect where there's absolutely no stretch there. There's nothing pulling across my chest. So you see that a lot in young kids. They're so supple, they're able to spin their hips, but they're getting no value out of it because it's not connected to their chest. We want to separate by pulling across. That has to pull across your chest. There has to be that stretch right across. So remember that it's not a great thing just to speed up the hips and let them get away. They've got to stay. It's a complicated one. Yes, we want a separation, but we want to stay connected so it's pulling across your body. So that would be the X factor stretch. Pulling. Everything is pulling straight across, stretching up here. Everything is at its max. I'm extending up, the right side staying down, like so. That's pushing hard. That's pushing hard back. So we're getting all the forces going. But in the end of the day, you're going to get more by going more arm speed, more wrist speed, shorter, faster force on the club rather than a big, long, languid swing. Great if you can make a long swing and keep the force on the club, fair play to you. But the only way you're going to figure that out is get a monitor and try different experiments. As I said, you can try jumping, see how that does. You can try short swings. You can try speeding up different parts of your body. We've done a throwing drill before that speeds you up. You know, if you're looking for something online, Tom House, he's a throwing coach. He's great follow online. He gives away all his information on Twitter. He really is a good person to follow on Twitter. He's coaches the NFL quarterbacks. He coaches the baseball players. So, you know, if you're looking for speed and power and stability, that's a great resource to go to. He's got all those throwing programs. If you look into it, weighted balls, which again, golf is all about throwing. It's the same action. We did that drill earlier where you can learn. A good one for speed is two-handed, throw in there with a little jump. One-handed, throw in there with a little jump. Left-handed, throw in there. And remember, the force is going there before it explodes up. So we want quick hands down early in the downswing as we explode up, okay? Outside of that, I really can't tell you how much beneficial it will be for you to go short and fast. Short backswing, long follow through. Play whichever way you want, but practice short to long rather than practicing long to slowing down. You tend to decelerate if you go a long backswing, while with a short swing you tend to accelerate, and that will build into your game. Well, there's probably more to speed. It is a very complicated theory, but that's enough for now.